The AFL practice and preseason matches are an opportunity for clubs to understand their players better, experimenting with different rotations and systems. The fans get an opportunity to see the new developments of the players over the off-season applied in game day situations, alongside areas of improvements without it coming at the expense of premiership points. This also applies to rookies who get their first taste of senior footy. Ollie Hollands and Alex Singh-Cotter were quality contributors, but today we're looking at another potential round one debutant. One of the players who showed some signs for the club and fans alike was first-year player Lachie Cowan, who, as it is with his build, looks ready-made, but demonstrated some moments that instill a level of assurance amongst fans with what he can provide in the future. Today is the first installment of Every Touch, a series where every week I take one player, I look at every single touch, alongside some observations I made and some moments which don't count on the stat sheet. We look at some of his possessions. First, there were a couple of uncontested intercept marks and kicks to follow. There was the most memorable play where he trapped the ball with one hand, did a full 360 in the middle of the ground and belted it into a dangerous spot in the forward 50. And it was well flighted so Harry could nudge Frampton under the footy, and we scored from that sequence. There was a simple kick down the line to a pack which was a turnover. There was a nice spoil in there, a little bump to knock De Goey off stable ground to help us win the ball back. Now for some observations. Now I envision when Cowan's playing his best footy, he'll take the role of Ed Curnow here. The link between the switcher and the man on the far side we're trying to get it to. With that thumping kick of his, especially on a ground like the MCG, we could properly utilise all real estate on the ground and really stretch opposition defences. Or he'd be able to get it further afield more directly. I'd also in the future like to see him taking the role of Alex Singh-Cotter on this play, except he fully commits to the run and can use his athleticism to burst, clear and swing the play in our direction. There was one play he could have sort of offered a flat out run to get a handball receive, but sort of backed away and let Adam Chera do the work, which I don't blame, but I'd like to see a little bit more there. I noticed that Lachie Cowan was very happy to just sit on the back of stoppages and wait for the ball to be fed out to him. He definitely will help with relieving a bit of pressure with the distance he can put onto the kick, especially if we're trapped in the back pocket or something like that. I did like this sequence where he held a fair bit of separation and thus had time to weigh up his options. Good composure to hit the short pass and not try to bite off the one in the middle. There were times though where he was less inclined to play a contested footy and would instead hold that position so he could provide an option should we win it. I think with a lot of confidence at the level, he'll just sprint towards the footy, no hesitation, and it'll make for a far more effective possession on our side in my opinion. And we sort of did see that as the game wore on, trying to even out the contest with Tom Mitchell evidently closer to the footy here. He did though seem a little bit timid, whether that was because he felt more comfortable with the more experienced teammate assuming responsibility, or because of that body language at the contest, or even with some of the marks he contested. Instead of timing a run and jump, he'd like sprint, stop at the fall of the ball, and not really throw his body at the contest because he'd actually stunted momentum by stopping. I feel like if we talk about his kicking in this game, I mean, we've sort of brushed over it already. Sure, he was feeling things out, but I'm not sure if he's going to feel as rushed as he looked at times, should he play early in the season. There were quite a few dump kicks that didn't really seem well thought out because he's still readjusting to the pace of the game. Everything feels quicker, therefore you rush more. Are you willing to take that gamble if you're Michael Voss and the selection team against two very good opponents early in the season? One thing which I find very interesting, Lachie Cowan's assignments in this game were either Jamie Elliott, Bobby Hill or Bo McCreary, which means they must believe in him to keep up with that kind of player pace-wise, given the ground he can cover at his height, or they like it as an opportunity to have an extra player at the marking contest who can go up, rather than to stay down with the crummer and eliminate that threat altogether. That said, whilst the confidence in the coaching staff tells me one thing, there were times where there were lapses like this, where off a set shot, he's tried to cut off the lead in the corridor, which isn't an awful idea, except he's isolated Fish on 3. Lucky Elliott doesn't nail the kick over there. Or he'd find himself in no man's land like here, where he's not remotely close to where the ball is, nor is he manned up on what I'd assume is his direct matchup, Bobby Hill. Lucky the kick to him is absolutely abysmal. Or a couple times where he would get outrun to a certain spot by his man as the ball moves quickly. I understand this was game 1. I understand it takes time to adjust, both the pace of the game and competing against bigger bodies. That influences a number of things, especially mindset, and you can get found out in some ways by the opposition. But I absolutely love the fact that we threw him into the first team, just to give him that experience. It gives him confidence. There's obviously a belief by the coaching staff. And now he has a foundation, he knows areas of improvements, and how he feels he coped. Game 1's always the hardest, but that only means that every game from here is an opportunity to be a better player. The question remains, is Lachie Cowan a consideration for round 1 as a Zac Williams replacement? I would say yes and no. I think the playing attributes are there. I think all the work needs to be done upstairs. And that has a lot to do with experience. The little voice in his head is probably influencing his hesitancy to go for the ball, whether he looks timid in some situations, whether he looks a little bit clunky in his movements because of that. I think in due course, everything will loosen up and come more naturally. But can we afford to throw him in the deep end in games that matter? Games that will count. Games that we looked back on last year and said that was a game we needed to win. That's for you to decide. Share your thoughts in the comments. Show your support on the show by dropping a like if you liked it, and subscribe to be witness to every episode of Every Touch. Thank you for tuning in. Bye for now.